This one's about the war inside your head. Tom Reber is the founder of the Contractor Fight, and he's the author of Sell Unafraid. And today we go deep on fear, excuses, discipline, and why success in this business starts with the 6 inches between your ears. You're watching the LeanScaper podcast, where landscapers come to grow. If you want the systems, stories, and strategies to build a lean, mission-driven company that your team loves working for, keep watching. Tom, it's super good to see you again, my friend. Welcome to the LeanScaper podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, Benji. It's great to be here, man.
So you run a program and have for a while and have built a whole brand called the Contractor Fight. And I thought that was an interesting entry point into this conversation. In your experience, time spent with your members, time spent on stage at shows, time spent in your own businesses, what is the inner fight for a contractor, and why does winning it matter more than strategy?
Yeah, I actually named the company the Contractor Fight because of the 6 inches between our ears. My own life experience and ups and downs, I could always trace it back to what was going on between my ears. There's this inner battle between your excuses and your potential. and the the war inside your head. It's the part of you that wants to dominate versus the part of you that hits the snooze button, avoids hard conversations, chickens out for, not raising your prices or whatever. Um, and, of course, landscapers need marketing and leads and systems and stuff, and those matter big time, but none of that works to the degree that it could if the person looking back at you in the mirror is soft between the ears. And so I find when you win that inner fight against the self-doubt and procrastination and what do we call it, the addiction to comfort. Um, when you dial that in, then those strategies actually work at a higher level because your foundation is stronger. So, tactics are the tools. And I find that your mindset is what really weaponizes things when you win the battle between your ears first.
Despite the macho demeanor and the big beards and the big trucks and sort of the whole shtick, I mean, there's a lot of really successful female entrepreneurs in this space too, so I should mention them as well. But I don't think I'm gonna get canceled for just making the observation that there is a certain brand, a certain like macho in your face brand that a lot of landscapers and a lot of contractors more broadly um li build around themselves. There's a way that they show up, but you're saying that there's kind of there might be, despite all that, despite the outward appearance, you use the word chickens, and that's really funny to me because I feel that way too. I mean, I see a lot of people who are 250 pounds and outwardly say that they're the tough guy, and then literally for the life of them cannot hold a junior apprentice on their job site accountable to something that was in literally in the job description. It's like, okay, well, how tough are you? Like, what how big is this mindset issue that we're talking about?
I mean, years ago, these are rough numbers. What do they say? 67% of statistics are made up on the fly, the old joke. But I don't have data to back it up. All right. So it's just my hunch. I believe success in business is about 90% between your ears and 10% math, tactics, strategy. And this mindset thing is huge, man. We all have we were all raised a certain way. We all have stories that we tell ourselves. For example, you know, one of the things that I used to struggle with all the time when I first started my company 1,000 years ago, my contracting business. I'm a painting contractor, and you know, just take like your money mindset, for instance. If I were to poll everyone in the audience right now listening to this and say, just ask them a question, how much is a lot of money? You're going to have a ton of different answers because it's subjective, you know? And I used to project what I thought was a lot of money onto my quotes. Like, oh, they'll never go for this and stories like that. So I think it's the stories that we tell ourselves that really shape us. We have an acronym or whatever you call it in the fight called TBAR, TBAR. Your thoughts become your beliefs become your actions, and your actions become your results. So if you think to yourself, nobody wants to work, I can't find people, well, then you're going to start believing the propaganda. And then that belief will prevent you from taking the actions required to build a great recruiting funnel and onboarding plan and career path for people. And then the result will be you're stuck on the hamster wheel again. And so, or with pricing, if you believe that all prospects are cheap and they only care about money, then if you think that, then you're going to end up believing that story. And so we have to be really intentional at the foundational level of just controlling our thoughts. And, there's science out there in the brain community that says something like we all have like 60 to 90,000 thoughts a day, and about 80% or so are like negative or on autopilot. They're not even necessarily conscious. Um, and so that carries into how we run our businesses, how we price, how we sell, how we lead, whether or not we have a tough conversation with somebody. So I think back to your analogy, the big 250-pound landscaper with the dually truck and the big airplane wings on the truck and all this other stuff. They're good people. They're working their tail off, but I think they're allowing fear to run the show. They're afraid that, and I've been there. Like, if I have a tough conversation, they're going to leave. Well, if they're going to leave because you're holding them accountable and bringing some things into the light, then they're probably not the right person to begin with. And so, and I've learned a lot of hard lessons. I had a day we called one of my old companies called Black Monday, and we had 12 field employees, and I fired 7 of them within 20 minutes. And I was terrified. And it was a long time coming. And I finally I had a partner at the time, and I called him. I said, "Hey, I got good news and bad news." He goes, "What's that?" I said, I've taken back control of the company." And he says, "Great. What's the bad news?" I said, "We only got 5 guys left." And, but Benji, the cool thing is when I overcame the fear of doing that, because we had a production schedule, we were doing hundreds and hundreds of jobs, and you know how it is. Like you have these demands to meet and promises to keep. And we were allowing these guys to dictate how they were going to show up, what crew they were going to work with. I mean, it just became ridiculous. They wouldn't listen to the crew leaders. I'm not kidding. Within 30 days of getting rid of the wrong people, overcoming that fear, we call it, run into the punch. Um, our our profit margin increased by a little over 10% with, less than half the guys, because we kept the right people and we incentivized them and this and that for being a great fit of the culture. But I had no clue how the fear of having these conversations and making the moves a leader needs to make were impacting just the overall morale of everybody, and not to mention, what the bank account looked like. So I just encourage people, I mentioned run into the punch. There's when I was in the Marine Corps, I remember a martial arts instructor said once, he asked the question, he says, "Would you rather get hit if you see that I'm going to hit you? Would you rather get hit when my punch is at full force or before then?" And we were like, "Well, before then." And he's like, "When a punch is coming at you, the natural tendency is to back away, right? And avoid the punch." And he's like, "Close the gap and the punch will never get to full force and won't hurt as much if you attack it." And so that's just kind of a thing I've carried with me forever, that you could quote, who is it? Mel Robbins, the 5 4 3 2 1 thing. If there's a mad customer and the phone ring and you have to call them today, the longer you put off calling them, the bigger the phone's going to get, the more intimidating it's going to be. But if you go, "Man, I should really call Benji and have that conversation about the project the other day," the minute you think it, just take action, because time fuels fear. So the longer you take to take action on things that are right, the harder it's going to be in the long run. So that's that whole run into the punch mentality that we try to live by here.
Hey guys, Benji here. One of the best ways to support this show is by rating and reviewing. So if you get a ton of value out of this channel or you think we could do things better, please leave us a review. We read every single one and we implement the suggestions that we get. As you were talking through that, I found my brain tempted to ask you, well, where do you think all this comes from? Where does the fear come from? Where does the self-doubt come from? And then I noticed, like, I sort of reminded myself something that I've learned through my own personal development journey and spirituality and all the woo-woo stuff that I do, and my friends know I do a lot of it, um, which is this, and I don't know if people feel this way. It's certainly this would be like a controversial take and kind of like incongruent with modern therapy and how a lot of this is done, which is very much focused on what's your past trauma and where does this come from, and let's get to the source and let's root it out. So my view on this is different, which is like, to be honest, it doesn't really matter. It's just there. You struggle with fear. You struggle with self-doubt. We could spend the next 3 years tracing back its history to something that was said when you were a kid. You may find it, you may not. Even if you do find it, you might find that helpful, you might not. So this is I'm not well, I've just put the disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. Don't necessarily follow my advice. This is a podcast. We're riffing. What I have found the most effective, and there's a really good, strong principle here, which is start from where you are. And so if you're like, let's just start from where we are. If someone's listening and they're like, you know what, everything that Tom just said kind of makes sense. I'm often scared to hold my crews accountable. When I put a price on the table, I'm nervous about the number because I don't know if this person's going to go for it. And I can think of 10 other examples where fear is running the show. I believe fundamentally in my bones, Tom, the only way to be successful and the only way to have that winning mindset is to brainwash yourself. Yeah, I actually believe that. You have to brainwash yourself. If the voice inside your head is not louder, more consistent, more positive, and more precise than the voices outside your head, which are negative, multi-directional, and all the time, if you don't literally drown that out with your own internal voice, you will lose. So my question to you, I love that T-bar thing. Thoughts become beliefs, beliefs become action, action becomes reality. What are I mean, maybe a two-part question. Literally, what do you do? What's the self-brainwashing that you do? And then what do you coach your community on? What kind of things do you get the really positive feedback on? What types of things do people come up to you and say, Tom, you told me to do this and I can't believe it worked?
Yeah. Well, and just for the record, I agree with you. We need to brainwash ourselves, right? Because we already are. So we just need to be intentional about the brainwashing. Um, so you brought up T-bar and you said, "What do I do and what do we coach around?" Well, one of the things, and it's funny because I'm not I have a huge respect for um, spiritual things and mindset and all that other stuff. So what I'm about to say, when I say it, people think that I'm getting all woo woo on them, and that's not the intent. I'm just saying I know this works.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works, and I really don't even care how it works. I just know it works. Um, I brainwash myself. I have a document on my notes app on my phone, and it's just called My Standard, and it's titled that, and it starts with and I read this out loud every day in the morning. I do a walk or whatever, have coffee, I'll pull it out and I read it so I hear myself saying these things because it's back to the stories we tell ourselves. And you know, you know, you talk about the brain, the reticular activating system, right? The RAS. The RAS is designed to get you more of what you focus on. Is the simplest way that I could explain it. And so mine starts with, and a lot of these are personal things, so I'm not gonna read everything, but like, I want choices. Like, that's front and center. That, to me, the ultimate freedom is having a choice. I wanna have a choice. I am the table. Some of these are 1 and 2 line things, some of them are sentence. I am the table is, I spent so many years feeling like I was an outsider, I didn't fit in, I wasn't qualified, I wasn't the guy, and I had a coach years ago, he goes, "Build your own damn table. Stop asking for a seat at the table." You know? I am the table. I make my own opportunities. I don't wait for others to invite me to their table. I create my own and I play by my rules. And then I have a section called, my code. That's live unafraid, be like water. These all mean things to me. Be here, give all, meaning be where your feet are. Like it's so easy to be in 1,000 places. You're only in this moment right now, so be there. Um, Mediocrity dies today. It's just one of those. This is my standard. Win the moments.
Yeah.
You can't win the day if you don't win the moments that make up the day. So you have to win those. If you're trying to lose weight, right, or repair your marriage or whatever. Should I go home early and go for a walk with my wife, or am I going to stop at the bar and have a drink with the boys?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
win the moment.
Yeah.
Um, and then I just have some other kind of mantras, and my kids look up to me and inspire to me. I'm enjoying our home with amazing views. I earn X amount per month.
And the list goes on.
It
There's like
it
this
just
whole
goes on and on,
there's
but I brainwash myself and I do a lot of crazy self-talk as I'm driving around or walking around my office or whatever it is, and you'll hear me mumbling to myself. It's me just trying to, again, not like giddy, corny, pep talky stuff, but just trying to take control of the way I think. And then the other thing I believe is we allow fear to knock us around because we haven't built the habit of doing hard things. The harder things that you do, the more uncomfortable things you do, the more you grow. And so, um, I'm always looking, you know, I'm always looking for a challenge. I'm always looking for a way to push myself. And I heard many years ago that, confidence is built by honoring the commitments that you make to yourself and by doing hard things.
100%. There's
And I
no shortcuts.
Right.
But
And so, yeah.
there's such an irony here with what you said to me when we look at this landscape, no pun intended,
Yeah.
of landscapers is like these people have chosen to do some of the hardest things in the world. I've said this on other episodes. I really don't think that the average landscaper fully comprehends the difficulty settings of the business that they have chosen. These are
100% agree.
really hard businesses.
Well, we're navigating other human beings with our clients and their emotions and expectations. We're navigating our team. We're navigating our own self-talk and stories. And all these things work together. It is I say the same thing to our community all the time, man, about like, guys, give yourself
Some
some
credit.
credit.
Yeah.
Pat yourself on the back. You
Yeah.
are doing what 95% of humanity does not have the stomach to do.
So, but it's funny because they've chosen to do a hard business and build hard things, and yet there are this other list of hard things that we've identified they clearly avoid all the time. It's like I would rather work 70 hours a week on the field, in the weather, in the equipment, miss my family. I'd rather do that than have the 5-minute hard conversation with someone
Right.
that I need to have that would actually ameliorate the situation that forces me to spend 70 hours on site in the first place. So there's like it's sort of like a waiting problem or like yeah, like pick like choose your hard. Like this is hard and this is hard, but I honestly I think that you can choose I think that you should choose this other hard, which is like have the stones to charge what you need to and have the critical conversations with the customer and hold your team accountable and hire better and blah blah blah. And there I it's perplexing to me why so many contractors, landscapers stay stuck choosing the wrong hard.
Well, I think it comes back to the clarity of like, I'm a results guy. So, in your own personal life, your health, your mental health, your financial situation, your relationships, all those things, look at the fruit, right? And there's facts behind the fruit. So
Mm.
if you don't like the fruit that you have in a certain area of your life, then you got to examine the person in the mirror and go, okay, what facts have I allowed to be true? And if I want this to change, then it's nothing more complicated than I need to take the actions to change it. And, again, success is inconvenient. Doesn't care how you feel. It requires what it requires. And so, the having the tough conversations and stuff, like you said, you're going to choose your hard. My buddy who owns Aquascape, the water feature company, his name is Greg Whitstock. Grew up with Greg, and I worked with his company for a while, and coached and helped him with some things, and a ton of people in that industry. Greg will tell you if 100% that business is nothing more than solving problems. And I think if you can reframe that your life as a business owner is nothing more than solving problems. You're solving problems with how to build something, solving problems of how to deliver what a client wants. And so that just it's obvious that as long as there's people involved and there's scopes of work, there's going to be problems. So if you just reframe it and just go, this isn't out of the ordinary. This is just part of the job description of being a business owner. I got to solve problems. And sometimes solving problems is a pain in the butt and it's inconvenient and you don't feel like doing it or having those conversations or raising your prices or firing somebody. I mean, I had to fire somebody a week and a half ago, um, a project manager in one of our companies, and it sucked. And I was losing sleep over it, and listen, I've been in this game a long time and, you know, and it's never easy. I never look forward to, like, having that conversation. I'm laying awake the night before because 'cause I'm like, I know I'm meeting him in the morning, we're gonna have this talk, and he has, you know, he kinda has an idea it's coming, but he I know him enough to know he's probably thinking I'm gonna give him a hall pass one more time, and, we had a plan in place to improve his performance, and it just didn't get there, and we had to have the conversation. My point is I had to do it anyway because here's the other thing I think a lot of people don't think of. When you're unwilling to do these hard things, it doesn't just affect you. It affects everybody that's connected in any way to your organization, your clients, your employees, your vendors, and what does it say to them about your leadership if you're not willing to get uncomfortable and have those tough conversations and make those hard calls?
So you mentioned a second ago, like success doesn't care how you feel, and you say that from stage, and I've read enough of your stuff to see it. That's kind of a bit of a mantra of yours. Um, how do you teach people to separate emotion from execution, but do that without becoming emotionally numb or robotic? There's moments where we need to just get it done, have the phone call, have the hard conversation, but there's also a whole other life that we need to have that requires empathy and softness, and as a partner, as a parent, as a community member, as whatever. So, do you have any thoughts on striking that balance?
Yeah, well, the first is we're never gonna eliminate emotion. We're all gonna have them. So you need to learn how to lead it. Um, and for me, you know, emotions are signals to me of other problems, other things that are going on. And so I, I teach contractors to feel the frustration or the fatigue or the fear, but then ask themselves, okay, this is what I'm feeling. What's the next right action, no matter how small it could be? Just what's the next right move? That right move might be going, I need to take a half a day off. And I'm going to go hike. I just got to clear my head. And that's the right move. And that's totally cool. Um, Before that, though, because if you have people in your organization, you're going to have conflict. You're going to have times that you have to have tough conversations. I like to in our sales training, we teach people there's a term called vanguarding. Are you familiar with that?
No, I've never heard
Okay.
that.
So, my buddy Marcus Sheridan, known him for a long time. I
He
know
was
you
on
know
the show
Marcus.
like
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know he was just on.
Yeah.
Marcus and I go way back. He's spoken at many of our events, and he's been a great just friend and mentor through the years. Um, we did a workshop once with him, and, he talked about this concept called vanguarding. So, for instance, if I'm going to, um, do your patio, okay? I'll do just like a sales example. Um, I'm gonna set the expectation. I'm gonna say, "Benji, this is how the project's gonna go. I know this is the final product, but over the next 2 weeks, it's gonna look like a grenade has gone off in your backyard. And for about the first week and a half, it's not gonna look like we're making any progress. The ground's gonna be tore up, there's gonna be holes or whatever it is, right? You just paint that picture. But the last, you know, 4 or 5 days of the project, that's when things start coming together. So that's an example of vanguarding. Or if I'm going to vanguarding with my team, when I hire and I onboard people, we talk about the standards here. We talk our values, our standards. What's the standard for this role in this position? And I will vanguard it by saying, hey, Benji, there might come a time in the future where I have to call a timeout and we have to have a conversation because the standards aren't being met. And I just want you to know if that happens, we're going to have a very direct conversation. I will be kind, but I'm going to be direct. It's a two-way conversation. And my goal is to solve this problem together. So that's kind of like telling people what's going to happen before it happens. So then when I have to have that tough conversation, I'm going to go, Benji, remember when we were onboarding you and I talked about we have a standard? Yeah. I'm reminding them. And that usually softens the blow and it kind of frees you up a little and to kind of, not that you need it, but to give you permission to have the tough talk because you talked about it in advance. Where a lot of guys go wrong is they don't set the standards and they don't track the standards and the KPIs around those standards, and then they just get ticked off at their team, and then they go in and they start ripping them a new one or whatever it is, and it just doesn't go well. So, or they just avoid the conversation altogether, hoping it goes away, which I've made that mistake too.
Um, Most landscapers are true experts at building things, building complex things, building big things, multifaceted things. It's really an unbelievable set of gifts that they have. And to your comment earlier, I think they all need to give themselves a little more credit for what they actually do. Now, a lot of them struggle with is leading people. So they're really good at building things. They're not great at leading people. And what they need to become is someone who is great at leading people who are good at building things. That's very clear. That's the pathway. That's the jump. And so the situation that I see, I'd call this almost a cul-de-sac or a dead end, or pick your metaphor, that people get stuck in, is they become, the term is basically a visionary with 1,000 helpers, and they're
Yeah.
this really, like, excited and creative person who's an amazing builder, and they've surrounded themselves with helpers, and there's direction given and there's instruction, but it's not, they haven't made the big jump up the big stair on the staircase to go from builder to leader. And I'm curious if you can draw on your massive aggregate experience working with people. What is the single biggest internal shift that a landscaper needs to make to step into real leadership?
Yeah. Well, let me qualify this that I am not John Maxwell, the leadership guru, right? Um, and I'm only speaking from my own experience and in life and the Marine Corps and business and stuff. And I believe the number one mindset shift, the reframe is, and you talked about it, like it's going from that technician thinker to being a owner, right? But a true leader is somebody who influences others. And I view my role as a leader first and foremost to make your life and your role work for you. I want to help you achieve the goals and the dreams that you have for your life if you're going to work in my organization. And so that means I need to ask you about those. Benji, what do you want to accomplish in 2025? How can I be a part of that? You know, what resources do you need? Maybe you want to, and I'll give an example from one of my old painting companies. We had this guy, we had uh, this meeting with all our team individually, and he said, I said, "What do you want to accomplish this year? What would make this year a win for you on the personal side?" And he said, I never was able to take my wife on a honeymoon, and she wants to go to this fancy bed and breakfast in the area, and it was like $3,500 for the weekend or whatever. He was one of our crew leaders, and so I listened and and I just said, "Hey, would it be crazy if we met later this week and kind of put a plan together to help you do that this year?" And he's like, "Cool." And we got together a couple days later and outlined kind of some performance metrics. And dude, he hit it within like 60 or 70 days. And he earned that thing. And so we helped him get what we want. So I just think if you help Zig Ziglar, you help enough people get what they want, you're going to get what you want. And I think that's something we lose sight of is that is working in my organization making your life better. Like every one of us that goes to work for somebody or even starts a business, we all have the question to answer, what's in it for me? Why should Benji or Joe or Sally bring their time, talent, sweat, blood, tears, and experience to my organization? How is their life going to be better? So I think if we can really understand what's important to people, um, treat them the way that they want to be treated, not necessarily the way we think they need to be treated. You know what I think that's called the platinum rule, treat others the way they want to be treated. It's different than the golden rule. Um, in order to do that, you got to ask questions. You got to understand them. You got to peel back their motives for why do they get up in the morning and do this. You have other career choices. And so I'm just always trying to give them something worth caring about and helping them get what they want. In fact, in the contractor fight, I just sent a message to the team. We had our team meeting on Monday, and I said I'm going to be reaching out to everybody on the team and scheduling just some 30-minute one-on-ones because I'm just curious. It's been a while since I've done it with my team. And so today I sent the link out. Everyone's scheduling times over the next week, and it's going to be things like, Benji, what are you doing in this role that's stupid?
Right.
You know? What if you were able to say what are the 2 to 3 things that when you do consistently, it serves our clients at a high level, fires you up, and it makes the company money. And are you spending 80% of your time doing those 2 to 3 things? And if not, let's have a conversation. I'm just trying to understand, if you could wave a magic wand over your role, what would you change about it immediately? What do you hope never changes? I'm just trying to understand, and I just think the more it's selling, isn't it? It's just like the sales process. You're uncovering somebody's motives and reasons and things that are important to them, and it's no different with your people. And last thing, I know you're say something. I teach this thing on culture that I believe firmly, I'll take this to the grave, that success is an inside out game. So one of the things that we coach on in the fight is success starts with a strong you, strong home, then a strong business. And so take care of yourself, get sleep, eat right, exercise, make sure your mind is healthy. Give your best energy and time to your family and your spouse and your kids and honor those commitments. Be home for dinner and work your life around that. Of course, there's seasons and this and that where it's crazy in the trades because that's just how it is. But when you communicate those things and the norm is that you're putting things in this order, you will find that you have a stronger business on the other side. So, like with your team, I do this thing. Um, there's things like there was a book written many years ago, and I think it was from Harvard. A bunch of guys did this study. If you ever heard of oh God, can't remember the name of it now. Anyway, I got the idea to do this from that, where if I went into a room of 100 landscapers right now who are struggling with profit, and I said, what's the first thing that you got to fix your profit? My experience, because I've done this in rooms of hundreds of contractors and I've seen the hands go up and I've heard the things they yell out. The majority of them start with, you got to do quality work. Or they'll say, you got to have a satisfied customer. You got to make your customers happy. You do those two things, you'll make profit. Where it's actually, I call it the profit path. There's about, profit's the ninth step on the profit path. Like think stepping stones
Yep.
or stairs. We all want to end up with that repeatable profit. It starts inside out is my leadership, my vision. Then it moves to what kind of culture. And then it moves to our team, right? Employee satisfaction, which also like a strong leader drives a strong culture. A strong culture satisfies employees. Satisfied employees are more loyal, and more loyal employees are more productive, which in turn raises the quality of the product, which in turn satisfies a customer, then creates a loyal customer, which then gives you profit. So it's an inside out game. And so, a lot of times we're trying to fix the wrong thing in the business where our default every time my business is the people that we coach and work with 100% of the time when there's a problem, that's the order that we look at it.
Mm. It sounds to me like if I had to summarize that last few paragraphs, which are beautiful, by the way, if I had to ask, like, hey, so what's the biggest internal shift? I'm actually hearing the word that jumps out to me is like curiosity. Like I gotta move from a doer and a dictator and a teller to an asker and a prober and an inquirer. Because doing that, and whether I'm asking a person what is something that um, is stupid that you do every day and how do we fix that, or I'm asking my spreadsheet or my accountant, where is the profit bleeding? I feel like that's always the right place to start, and the path unfolds for you from there. Whereas if you skip ahead and you start solutioning things without first having a nuanced understanding of the problem. That's where you make bad overcorrections. That's where you do band-aid solutions, or that's where in many cases you actually fix problems that aren't even there in the first place, and that's a whole other waste factory that you can go down and spend time on, and, but that's kinda what I'm hearing you say, that "Hey, I gotta go from a builder to a leader." It's like, get curious.
Curiosity is huge, and I think with that, I think good leaders are vulnerable to a degree and transparent, meaning, and I learned this lesson many, many years ago. And I learned it, and then I must have forgot it because I screwed it up about 8 months ago with my team in the fight, and I created a ton of chaos. And I'll tell you the story quick. But basically, I had this crew leader many years ago in one of my companies. His name was Tony, and Tony was the best of the best when it came to be a painter. Great crew leader, this and that. But he had this insecurity to make decisions on his own. He's not a boss, right? He's like a or he's not an entrepreneur. He's just very he's a team player, didn't want to make mistakes, but he always knew what he was doing. And but Tony had the habit of calling like, "Hey, we ran into this issue on the job. What should I do?" As an example. This feeds to the curiosity. I used to solve the problem for him. "Oh yeah, do this, hit it with some 220 grit, tack cloth it, it should look great." I wish I could say that I made a brilliant leadership move, but what I'm about to share was a total accident. I was walking into an appointment and I didn't have any time, and he called me, and I was annoyed because it was like the 3rd time that day he had called me. So I was a little annoyed and I'm pressed for time. I had like 30 seconds. He lays out this problem and I go, "Tony, if this were a side job that you were doing on the weekend and ran into this problem, how would you solve it?" He goes, "I would do this, this, and this." I said, "Great, do that." And I hung up on him. What I realized is that if I'm constantly solving the problems and not training them to think, I'll never scale my business. I'll never get out of the center of all the bullshit. And I'll limit their growth because they're never growing and thinking and this and that. So that became from that day forward, anytime our guys would call, our first question was, "Yeah, I've run into that before. What do you think you should do?" And sometimes in the beginning when I started this, they would say, "Well, I'm not sure what to do. That's why I called you." And I said, "Well, let's pretend you couldn't get a hold of me and you knew what to do. What would you do?" So I just try to keep peeling it back. And my rule has become as long as it's safe and ethical, best for the client, then do it. I'm cool with it. I trust you. And so we need to develop other leaders. A great leader develops other leaders, and you don't do that when you're a dictator. And so, and again, but the byproduct is, your phone's going to ring less, which is always nice, but you're going to build confidence in your team. They're going to become bulletproof. They're going to have a swag about them,
Yeah.
and or a swagger. And I just think there's so many benefits to having some humility and vulnerability of, the old saying we all use, you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. Well, how many of us are the smartest guy in our company right now because we don't give others an opportunity to share what's on their mind? And so with the contractor fight, I ticked off. We have about 8 coaches that work with our members, and we had this problem last year in the business. Um, and I was just on a disc profile, I'm a high D. For those that don't know what that is, I'm super dominant, type A. I just make quick decisions. I attack things. And a lot of times I spend a lot of time apologizing for decisions and things I do, right? And so I just high D'd this thing and I'm like, this is what I'm going to do, blah, blah, blah. And I sent a message out to all the coaches and I'm like, here's the problem. This is how I'm fixing it. Dude, I thank baby Jesus every day that every one of them didn't quit because they were about to.
Right.
And I pulled a couple of them aside, our 2 senior coaches, Tim and Derek. They're like, "We need to talk to you." So I called them. We had a 3-way conversation. And they go, "If you would have just got on the monthly coaches call with us and said, 'Guys, here's the problem. What do you think we should do?' He's like, "Dude, we would have had your back, you know? And we felt like we've been here, we've built this thing with you from day one. We're part of the DNA here, and you totally dismissed any of our thoughts on how to fix this problem." And I'll tell you, man, their fix to the problem was like 99% simpler than the one that I came up with.
Oh, way better. I'm
Yeah.
sure it was they're way closer to the problems. You the only I think a lot of the times there's something to really think about here. There's something kind of funny about it. The only thing that qualifies most business owners to solve the problems in their business is the fact that they own the business. They're not often, not always, the really, really big problems, big finance issues, big HR stuff, big strategy stuff. Okay. But the rest of the daily noise and like sort of or weekly issues, they flare ups, customer stuff, um, I think in many instances, the owner is actually the least qualified to solve the problem. They're the furthest from the issue. They've been off the tools for a while. They probably didn't sell the job. They haven't project managed the job, or they didn't build the process. Like they're the only thing that qualifies them in some way is their ego. And I think that your lesson there is a really valuable one. Probably what you so let's wind the clock back. What should you have done in that instance?
I should have literally said, "This is the issue we're having. I don't know how to solve it. I have some ideas,
What do
but
you guys think?
I'd love to hear what you guys think
Mm.
because I'm sure there's things you're seeing that I'm not seeing." And then later on, after I had the conversation with those 2 guys, a couple of the other coaches called me and they're like, "Dude, all you had to do was ask." And then I spent a month basically doing an apology tour and kissing their ass.
Well,
And thank God they all stayed, but I ticked them off, man, because I tried to be the leader
yeah.
instead of being the one that draws the best out of people and their experiences and group solve the problem. So,
Such a good lesson, Tom. Let's bring this in for a landing on this. You're talking to someone. I'm not going to say thousands of people, although over time thousands of people will hear this. You're talking to one person right now. You're talking to one person in their truck, in the gym, on the job site, in motion, in transit, whatever. And they are genuinely struggling with that inner fight. Self-confidence, self-belief versus self-doubt. Um, there's stories that they tell themselves in their head that keep them living below their greatness. What is your one piece of advice for that person to get through that journey faster?
work on you first. Again, it's a strong you, strong home, strong business. I think when you I mean, because listen, in the name of taking care of our families, we burn our health to the ground, we don't sleep, all these different things, and that affects everything, right? When's the last time you took your spouse on a date? When's the last time, things like that? Are you home for dinner when you say you're gonna be home? I just think so much of it starts at home. Success starts with you. Um, it's that whole strong foundation thing. Like my business will never be stronger than I am personally. And our families are involved in that. They're part of that. So I would encourage people to and what that might mean is instead of getting up at 6 and running out the door by 6:30, leave at 6:45 and spend 15 minutes going for a walk, reading a book, whatever it is. I don't care what it is, but give yourself some fuel. Um, sometimes a strong you is going to be um, taking care of getting around other people that think at a higher level, and that's going to help you. I mean, there's a million things I could give examples on, but I just think it's show up with the commitment that I'm going to show up and do things in the right order, and that means it's not self. It's the stupid analogy about the airplane mask, right? The oxygen mask, but like we contractors as a whole N the majority have a heart of gold, would do anything or anybody. Work ethic is not an issue. That's not it. I think it's the order in which they're trying to solve problems, so I gotta take care of me, so I'm strong at home, and when I'm strong at home, because who I am and who I am at home goes with me to work. That's been my experience, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, when I made a shift to take care of me first, then the family, then the business, that's when not only did those areas get great, but the business exploded. So, yeah, if I have to give one, it would be that.
That is the inner fight that I think all contractors deal with. We can talk about tactics and systems and strategy and process till the cows come home. And we do, and we love that. But I think that there's this whole other elephant in the room conversation, which you just captured perfectly. And I think that's as good a place as any to close. Tom, where can people find out about the awesome work that you do with the Contractor Fight, the speaking you do, some of your books and media? Like, what's kind of your digital footprint if people want to follow along?
Yeah, the contractorfight.com is a great place to start. We're all over social, and our podcast and YouTube channel are there. Got a new book that just came out a month ago called Sell Unafraid. If you guys want to grab it on Amazon, it really did. You brought up the curiosity thing, and it's talk a lot about being curious in the sales process. But the process we teach isn't just for sales. It's a way to communicate with other human beings in a way that make them feel important and make them feel like they're valued. And so the lessons in that can certainly carry on with the way that you lead your team, and you're curious and you peel things back, and Vanguard and all the things that we talked about. And there's a whole, I think there's 3 sections of the book. The whole first section is about winning the inner fight. So, but yeah, anywhere online, Contractor Fight, you'll find us.
Tom, thank you so much for your time today. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. We'll do this again soon.
Thanks again, Benji.